before she quietly disappeared from Hollywood, before people began asking why she was rarely seen with her father. Suri Cruise was the most famous little girl in the world. She didn't become famous because of a movie, or because of something she achieved. She became famous the day she was born. On April 18, 2006, Suri Cruise entered a world already watching. Her parents, Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, were two of Hollywood's biggest stars. Their relationship had dominated headlines for more than a year. The media even gave them a nickname, Tom Cat, when news broke that they were expecting a baby. Global attention reached another level. For months, magazines competed for the first photograph of their daughter. When Tom and Katie finally introduced Suri to the world through Vanity Fair, the images became an international sensation. Almost overnight, she became one of the most recognizable children on Earth. As she grew older, their attention only intensified. Every walk through New York, every family outing, every new photograph became entertainment news. While most children learned to ignore cameras, Suri grew up surrounded by them. Before she could even understand what fame meant, millions of strangers already recognized her face. To the public, her life looked perfect. A loving family, unlimited opportunities, and two parents who seemed to have everything. But photographs rarely tell the whole story. Behind the smiles, changes were quietly beginning. In just a few years, the family that fascinated the world would suddenly fall apart. And for Suri, childhood would never be the same again. For the first 6 years of her life, Suri Cruise seemed to have the perfect childhood. She traveled the world with her parents. She smiled for cameras. She appeared on magazine covers. To millions of people, the Cruise family looked inseparable. But in the summer of 2012, everything changed. On June 28, 2012, Katie Holmes quietly filed for divorce from Tom Cruise in New York. The news shocked Hollywood. There had been no public announcement, no warning signs. Within hours, every major news outlet in the world was covering the story. For 6-year-old Suri, the headlines meant very little. But the decision would change the course of her childhood forever. Unlike many celebrity divorces, this one moved with remarkable speed. Less than 2 weeks after the filing, Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes reached a settlement. According to public statements from both sides, their priority was clear: protecting their daughter. Katie was awarded primary residential custody of Suri. Tom retained visitation rights under the terms of their agreement. Both parents publicly asked the media to respect their daughter's privacy during this difficult time. From that moment, Suri's life began to look very different. Instead of dividing her time between two Hollywood stars, she was now living primarily with her mother in New York City. Katie made a conscious effort to give her daughter as normal a childhood as possible. Rather than raising Suri inside the Hollywood spotlight, she chose a quieter routine: school, walks through the city, time with close friends and family. As the years passed, one question began appearing again and again. Why was Tom Cruise rarely seen with Suri? Photographs of them together became increasingly uncommon. Major news organizations noted the absence. But neither Tom nor Katie publicly discussed the details of their private family relationship. Over time, the public filled that silence with rumors. Some blamed careers. Others pointed to personal beliefs. Many simply guessed. But the truth is, only the people involved know the complete story. What can be confirmed is far more straightforward. After the divorce, Katie remained Suri's primary caregiver. She focused on keeping her daughter's life as stable and private as possible. While the world debated what had happened, Suri continued doing what every child does. She went to school, made friends, celebrated birthdays, and slowly grew up, away from the fairy tale the public once imagined. The little girl who had once been surrounded by cameras was entering a very different chapter, one that would shape the person she would eventually become. Because growing up without constant public appearances from her father would also mean discovering who she was on her own. And in the years ahead, Suri Cruise would begin building an identity that belonged to no one but herself. As the years passed, the headlines slowly faded. The paparazzi were no longer following Suri every single day. For the first time in her life, she had the chance to experience something close to an ordinary childhood. Katie Holmes made New York City their home. Instead of growing up on movie sets, Suri grew up walking city streets, going to school, spending time with friends, taking dance classes, and enjoying the everyday moments most children take for granted. Katie rarely spoke publicly about her daughter, but whenever she did, her message was always the same. Her priority was giving Suri a stable, happy, and private life. As Suri grew older, she appeared less and less in celebrity news. Unlike many children born into famous families, she was launching a career in Hollywood. She was becoming a social media influencer, and she was attending red carpet events. Instead, she stayed focused on school and the life she was building away from the entertainment industry. At the same time, one question continued to follow her. What was her relationship with Tom Cruise? Over the years, major news organizations reported that Tom and Suri were rarely seen together in public. The lack of public appearances fueled endless speculation online. But speculation is not evidence. Neither Tom Cruise nor Suri has publicly shared the full details of their relationship. And for that reason, much of what has been written remains exactly that. Speculation. What is clear is that Katie worked hard to shield her daughter from the constant media attention that had defined her early childhood. Friends who spoke to reputable publications often described Suri as bright, polite, creative, and close to her mother. As she entered her teenage years, something remarkable happened. The little girl, once photographed almost every day, became one of the most private celebrity children in America. She no longer dominated magazine covers. She was chasing fame. She was quietly growing into her own person. For many people, that was unexpected. After all, she had been born into one of the most famous families on Earth. Yet she seemed determined to live by a different set of values. Not every child of Hollywood dreams of becoming a Hollywood star. Some simply want the freedom to decide who they are. And as high school drew to a close, Suri was preparing to make one of the biggest decisions of her young life. A decision that would quietly signal she was ready to step out from the shadow of one of the most famous names in the world. For most of her childhood, the world knew her as one thing: Tom Cruise's daughter, long before people knew her personality, her interests, or her dreams. She had already been defined by her last name. But as Suri grew older, something quietly began to change. She was no longer the little girl photographers chased through the streets of New York. She was becoming a young woman determined to build a life on her own terms. Unlike many celebrity children, Suri didn't step into Hollywood. She didn't launch a public career. She didn't try to turn her family name into a brand. Instead, she focused on school, her friends, and preparing for the future. Katie Holmes continued to keep her daughter largely out of the spotlight. Public appearances became increasingly rare. When Suri was photographed, it was usually during ordinary moments. Walking to class, spending time with friends, or enjoying a quiet day in New York. As she entered her final years of high school, another milestone quietly captured public attention. In 2024, Suri graduated from LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts in New York. The same school, attended by many talented performers over the years. Family and friends gathered to celebrate their occasion. Katie Holmes was there, proudly watching her daughter reach another important chapter. Soon afterward, another detail began making headlines. During some public events connected to her graduation, Suri was introduced using the name Suri Knoll. Knoll is Katie Holmes' middle name. The choice immediately sparked discussion across social media and entertainment news. Some people viewed it as a symbolic step toward adulthood. Others interpreted it as a desire to establish an identity separate from one of Hollywood's most famous surnames. But the truth is, Suri has never publicly explained the decision herself. And without her own words, any explanation beyond the public facts would simply be speculation. What is undeniable is that she has reached an age where she is making her own choices. Not as a celebrity child, but as a young adult beginning to define her own future. Later that year, another exciting chapter began. Suri enrolled at Carnegie Mellon University in Pennsylvania. Known for its strong academic programs, the university represented something much bigger than higher education. It represented independence, a chance to step even further away from the constant attention that surrounded her childhood. For the first time, her story was no longer centered on famous parents. It was becoming her own. The little girl once recognized everywhere she went was now simply another college student, attending classes, meeting new friends, planning for the future. Perhaps that was exactly the life she had always wanted. But even as Suri quietly embraced adulthood, one question continued to follow her. How had growing up in the shadow of global fame shaped the person she had become? The answer may not be found in headlines or paparazzi photographs. It may be found in the life she chose to build instead. A life defined not by celebrity, but by privacy, purpose, and the freedom to choose her own path. Every famous family leaves behind a legacy. Sometimes it's measured by awards, sometimes by wealth, or by generations of success. But Suri Cruise's story tells us something very different. For nearly 2 decades, the world has watched her grow up. First, as Hollywood's most photographed child. Then, as the daughter of 2 global superstars. And finally, as a young woman determined to live life on her own terms. Looking back, it's remarkable how much public attention surrounded someone who never asked for it. She never chose celebrity. She never chose magazine covers. She never chose to become the subject of endless headlines. Those choices were made long before she was old enough to understand them. Yet as she grew older, she quietly made one important decision after another. She stayed focused on her education. She kept her private life out of the spotlight. And she resisted the pressure that often follows children born into extraordinary fame. In many ways, that may be her greatest achievement. Today, when people search for Suri Cruise, they are often looking for answers about her relationship with her parents, especially with Tom Cruise. But perhaps that question misses the bigger picture, because Suri's story has never been only about who was there. It's also about who was. Katie Holmes has repeatedly said that protecting her daughter and giving her a stable childhood became her highest priority after the divorce. By most public accounts, she kept that promise, instead of growing up surrounded by constant media attention. Suri was given the chance to build friendships, pursue her interests, and prepare for adulthood away from Hollywood. That doesn't mean her life was ordinary. Few people grow up with the world recognizing their face before they can even read. Few understand what it's like to have strangers discuss their childhood every day. Yet despite all of that, Suri appears to have chosen something increasingly rare in today's world. Privacy. And perhaps, that choice says more about her than any headline ever could. Because in an age where fame is often treated as success, Suri seems to have chosen something else. The freedom to decide who she wants to be. Maybe that's why her story continues to resonate with so many people. Not because she's the daughter of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, but because she reminds us that every child, no matter how famous their parents may be, deserves the chance to discover their own identity. Without expectations, without constant attention, without living someone else's story. No one knows what the future holds for Suri Cruise. Perhaps she'll pursue a professional career outside the public eye. Perhaps one day she'll choose to speak about her experiences. Or perhaps she'll continue living the quiet life she has carefully built. Whatever path she chooses, it should be exactly that. Her choice, because after spending an entire childhood in front of the world's cameras, she has earned the right to decide what comes next. And maybe, that is the real lesson behind Suri Cruise's journey. Sometimes, growing up isn't about becoming who the world expects you to be. It's about finding the courage to become yourself. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more carefully researched stories about remarkable lives and the people behind the headlines. And now we'd like to hear from you. Do you think Suri made the right choice by living a private life away from Hollywood? Share your thoughts in the comments below.